You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, episode 539, Bliss.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Jessica Lynn Verdi, sitting in for Norman Lau. Each week on Mission Log, we examine an episode of Star Trek looking for the morals, messages, and meanings, asking ourselves, does it stand the test of time?
Does it indeed? This week, Bliss, the one where everyone is super excited about going back to Earth. The Seven of Nine's total disinterest just might save them all. Yeah. Jessica, welcome to the show. I hope that you are not a new voice to our audience because, of course, you host Mission Log the Orville on our very own podcast.roddenberry.com. But for those who may not know you, give us the nickel tour, if you would.
Oh, my name is Jessica Lynn Verdi. A long time ago, I was born on a cloudy day, and my mother was grateful.
And then fast forward and...
Yeah, I'm a Star Trek lover since I was a young kid. I was part of the improvised generation at Improv Theater in Los Angeles. And yeah, I was asked to do the Mission Log, the Orville show with the wonderful Mike Richards, and just having a blast going through episode by episode over there. And it has brought me to today, I think.
Yeah, I love that, you've done Mission Log the Orville. You did the spin-off series, Talking Ted, about Seth MacFarlane's comedy show on Peacock. So
has a lot of morals, messages, and meanings in that show.
It does.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, I love how they took that kind of 90s sitcom style and, like, they were true to that, but then they were also true to Seth's humor. And
you can see a lot of reverence for like Norman Lear there and stuff. It's pretty good. It made a lot of sense. Thanks to you for like going, I see this makes a lot of sense, and here we are to today.
And of course, Mission Log the Orville makes sense because the Orville is very much Seth's love letter to this period of like 90s Star Trek. So
that's just it. And I was having a conversation today where I used to actually really have an issue with people going, it's the real Star Trek, it's our Star Trek. And I'm of the opinion, if you like Discovery, if you like Strange New Worlds, if this is your Star Trek, good for you. And I actually learned how to love it without needing it to be Star Trek. But he really, as opposed to rewriting the wheel, he took something we love and just updated it a little bit. And so it is really successful, and it allowed it to become its own thing in the end. I love
that. Bring it to say, like, here's my thing. Here's what I love. And that's awesome. I love that.
That's exactly right. Let me give our audience an opportunity to find out how they can engage with us. Does that sound good?
Adore that. Yes, thank you.
So just so you know, Mission Log is a conversation about Star Trek. You can find the show at missionlog@roddenberry.com and on X and Facebook at Mission Log Pod. While you're at it, just give us a review and give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. Apparently you can review on Spotify now. That helps us and goes a long way, especially if you can't, contribute monetarily or if you don't feel like commenting. Do remember that, however, your comments could potentially be used on Mission Log or engage with the Roddenberry YouTube channel. Wait, did I say that all wrong? I sure did, didn't I?
No, you got it.
Well, sort of. I put the emphasis on the wrong word. Remember, your comments could be used on Mission Log, so be nice or be critical in a thoughtful way. You can engage with Roddenberry on our YouTube channel, and what is this? The Roddenberry Industrial Complex will not be denied.
Adam wrote that, and I don't have the heart to take it out.
Are you ready to give us this week's trivia, John?
I am. Let's bliss out a little bit on the trivia this week. I know, that was clever.
That was good.
We have a story by Bill Prady, and probably everybody listening to this knows his name. And at the time, Bill was producing and writing the sitcom Dharma and Greg, and he was and is a fan of Star Trek, and he pitched a story about a plant-based life form that emits pheromones that attract prey, and, you get the idea from there. Now, of course, Bill has had a long and successful career, from theme parks to Muppets to a number of hit TV shows. Most recently, you probably associate his name with The Big Bang Theory and its spinoff Young Sheldon. So far, this is his only episodic Star Trek writing credit. Maybe we'll see more in the future. Who
That's
knows?
interesting.
Right. You would think that his name would be all over it. Now, he came up with the idea, but the teleplay is by Robert J. Doherty, and we mentioned Robert last season for his first Trek contribution, which was the Voyager episode Vis-a-Vis, and he got a start on Voyager as an assistant to the producers, and then he found himself in the position of the youngest staff writer on the series, later becoming a story editor, and he's got many more episodes of Voyager to go through the end of the series. Our episode today was directed by Cliff Bull, not a new name to us by any stretch. Cliff, remember, got his start back in season 1 of The Next Generation.
Yes, I remember.
You do. Of course you do. And as of this episode, we are nearly at the end of his contributions to Voyager and thus the entirety of the Star Trek franchise. I think it just has one more episode to go. So it was a nice long run for Cliff. Jessica, have you ever owned a pitcher plant or a Venus flytrap or anything like that?
No, and much to my chagrin.
You know, I didn't necessarily need a carnivorous thing in my home, but I always wanted that. I would always want to check those out, and they would say, put your finger in it in the Venus flytrap, Yes, pitcher plants, obviously a real thing, not exactly the same physiology as a Venus flytrap, but those are two things that are carnivorous plant species, and I think that's very cool. They get a couple of mentions in the episode. Don't really go into it in the recap, but just wanted to mention, they're a real thing, and if you own one, let me know how you feed it.
Yes, I think that's the part why I couldn't own a snake or something, because I just don't want to have to deal with feeding one entity to another entity. I do think it's important, though, that you noted here in the trivia, because it kind of does accidentally settle the debate as to whether this is a sentient being or not. Because so if he actually is modeling this after a pitcher plant, although there's more and more I'm countering myself, there's more and more studies from scientists proving that there is a form of sentience, and just because we don't understand how a life form exists doesn't mean we have the right to
we will get there. We will do it.
My whole brain just
Yeah.
popped.
All right. So now I've planted that seed, and then we will get to it. All right. I want to point out a couple of things about the new set pieces that we get here. Not new set pieces. This is essentially a bottle show, and you have just a little bit of Katai's ship. You think about it. You have some CG of the creature of the thing, but then we have Katai's ship exterior, and we have a little bit of his interior, and that's really it. So this is not a, big production in that respect. But I love this. He's got a lot of stock parts. They just fill up his ship with a lot of junk. And in fact, the distress beacon that we just saw in the episode Gravity is this central kind of round thing in his ship. So that's right there. And thank you to Data Logan for sending along that bit of trivia. And by the way,
funny.
Isn't that great? I love when
funny.
you can name check props. We saw that last week and we saw that 3 weeks ago. And Data Logan also points out, just from a scientific thing here, that deuterium that they're looking for in the episode, it is a stable isotope of hydrogen. Hydrogen, of course, is the most common element in the universe. So why would the Voyager crew have such a hard time finding it? Or it seems like they could make it at this point.
Sure.
Yeah. So
it's giving what's the Tim Allen movie when they have to go get the ball of the energy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We have to do a fetch quest.
Galaxy
exactly. Quest. Yeah.
Exactly.
Quest.
Yeah, Galaxy. There we go. Or you just make up a thing. You just say it's unobtainium. And here is our unobtainium.
Dumb.
For the
so
episode.
Dumb.
But apparently pretty obtainable because it's everywhere.
I tell people that if you don't think you can be a writer, just think about, for sure that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote Gandalf and created these names and used Norse mythology. And then he also named the Mountain Doom. So you can also you can write these things.
Yeah, look, they can't all be winners. All right, let's meet our guest stars. Really just two to point out. We get to say welcome back to Scarlett Palmer's as Naomi Wildman, and we have William Morgan Shepherd as Katai. And what can be said about Morgan Shepherd that we haven't said already on Mission Log? He was an actor with a lot of presence, and we first saw him on TNG in The Schizoid Man. He was unforgettable as the commandant of Rurapente in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. He was memorable as Blank Reg in the TV series Max Headroom. He appeared in the groundbreaking original TV miniseries Shogun back in 1980, and his career goes fully back to the early 60s with appearances in British TV, film, and stage. In fact, he was with the Royal Shakespeare Company for 12 years.
You can totally tell.
Oh, man, it's one of those actors who just, without saying a word, he's just got presence.
Even with all that on his face, sure.
Yeah. Now, we lost Shepherd back in 2019, but we still have one more Star Trek appearance from him coming up when we finally roll around to the J.J. Abrams take on Star Trek from 2009.
Voyager's visitor seems familiar somehow, and yet I'm drawing a blank.
Prologue. An old alien pilot, Katai, fiercely attacks an enormous cloud-like entity while lightning bolts strike his ship. Despite, or maybe because of, his defiant taunts, he gets swallowed by the entity. Act 1. On Voyager's bridge, Captain Janeway, Tuvok, and Chakotay discuss a suspicious wormhole that appears to lead directly back to Earth. Secondary scans hint at bioplasmic discharge, suggesting a possible deception. Meanwhile, Tom Paris, 7 of 9, and Naomi Wildman return to Voyager from an unsuccessful mission to find deuterium. As excitement about the wormhole spreads, Seven remains skeptical, pointing out the improbability of the wormhole's sudden appearance. The crew, however, are convinced it's genuine, with Janeway and Chakotay even receiving messages from Starfleet offering them incredible personal news. Chakotay gets a full pardon, and Janeway learns that Mark's engagement is off. Seven's concerns grow as she hacks into Janeway's logs, where she notices a quick shift from suspicion to total enthusiasm. The crew's blind faith in the wormhole's authenticity alarms her, especially as they receive letters filled with overly optimistic news from home. Neelix gets an ambassadorial role. Tom gets a plum gig as a test pilot. Her suspicions lead her to sickbay, where the doctor is totally unaware of the crew's behavior, but he agrees to bring some of them in to see if there's a biological reason for what's happening with them. At last, an image of Earth appears on the view screen just after Seven is called to the bridge. The rest of the crew look on in awe, making plans for their arrival at Starfleet headquarters. Act 2. Determined to uncover the truth, Seven performs gravimetric scans and discovers a hidden ship, revealing a gruff old pilot warning her that they are being deceived. When power is cut to the lab, Tuvok enters and announces that power has temporarily been rerouted. Furthermore, he sees no record of contact with an alien vessel, and guess what? Access to the astrometrics lab is suspended. Seven and Naomi Wildman seem to be the only unaffected crew members. Neither of them has a desire to return to Earth, and both realize something is very wrong with the rest of the crew. Seven returns to sickbay to get support from the doctor, only to find him taken offline to prevent interference from the wormhole. As the crew prepare to enter the wormhole, Chakotay intercepts Seven and explains that Starfleet has ordered her to have her Borg implants deactivated, for protection, since the Borg could pick up her transceiver. She objects, but Chakotay says she's in good hands, and resistance is futile. Act 3. Excitement on the bridge escalates while Chakotay escorts Seven to the cargo bay, intending to place her in stasis. But Seven manages to outwit him and the security detail, erecting a force field so she can transport to engineering. Heavily armed, Seven then renders the engineering crew unconscious and sets up another force field. Janeway has the last word, though, as it were, sending an EM surge through the console and knocking Seven out. As Voyager enters a wormhole, actually the creepy alien entity, the bridge crew only see that they are entering a beautiful, glowing white wormhole leading them to Earth. Act 4. The further they venture into the alien/wormhole, the crew are rendered unconscious, lost in dreams of their desires. Neelix, the ambassador, visions of Earth, Tuvok reunited with his wife. Naomi, frightened and alone, wanders through the sleeping crew to find Seven and helps her regain consciousness. Together, they discover that the ship is being digested. Seven scans for the alien vessel again and contacts its pilot, Katai, who explains that the entity uses telepathic illusions to lure ships into its maw. The anomaly, the creature, consumes everything it can, organic matter, entire starships even. Katai, who has been hunting the creature for 40 years, explains that just the other day he had devised a plan to fly into a vulnerable part and detonate his ship, but the creature fooled him again and led him into its digestive system. While Seven is intent on a plan of escape, Katai insists that the only way out is to destroy the creature from within. Act 5. First stop, sickbay, where Seven wakes up the doctor. He's confused. Last he remembers, Paris was talking about a wormhole, and then he was taken offline. But he did notice heightened dopamine levels in the crew members he examined before going offline. Katai explains what's going on, corroborated by Seven, and says he'll need to see the ship's weapons manifest. Seven asks Katai to dig up any anatomical scans he has of the creature while the doctor tries to wake the crew. He starts with B'Elanna, using a cortical inhibitor to break the creature's telepathic hold, but yeah, that's not working at all. She's too deep in an illusion of seeing her old Maquis friends. Later, Katai's hunting through Voyager's weapons manifest for something to take down the beast and shares a bit of his tragic backstory. His family and thousands of others were lured by the creature to what they thought was a paradise planet, only to be devoured. Katai finds a potential weapon, a Class 9 photon torpedo, but the Doctor suggests a less deadly plan: make Voyager taste bad. Seven and Katai agree and come up with a scheme to vent antimatter from Voyager's warp core while Katai fires his Tetrion-based weapons at it, creating a bad stomach ache for the creature. Katai heads back to his ship, and the Doctor vents the antimatter. Katai fires, and boom, the creature starts to heave, spitting them out. Or so it seems. But something doesn't add up, and the Doctor's suspicions are confirmed when Katai calls, still stuck inside the creature. Seven realizes they were tricked again and orders a second discharge. This time, it works, and they are free. With the creature not that far behind, they make a speedy getaway. Seven offers to help repair Katai's ship, but he insists that they focus on getting home. Once out of range, the crew wakes up, confused to find themselves still in the Delta Quadrant. Janeway's ready to investigate the wormhole that tricked them, but of course, there's nothing there. Seven promises a full report in the morning and heads off for a much-needed regeneration. The next day, Seven and Naomi bond over studying Earth and astrometrics. They might not find it interesting now, but they share a hopeful moment, looking forward to seeing it for real someday. Meanwhile, Katai makes repairs on his ship and sets a course for another round with the creature. The end.
That is so well done. I feel like I watched it a third time.
Wow. Holy crap.
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining.
Well,
so I don't know that we mentioned this yet. I have never seen, up until now, an episode of Voyager. And I genuinely think if you didn't start from the beginning, like me, this is the perfect episode.
Great. So, okay, that bears a little explanation here for our audience who maybe didn't catch it at the beginning. You have watched a lot of Star Trek, just not Voyager. So you know Star Trek very well. And there are legit a lot of great podcasts out there that have this premise of we have a total newcomer who will watch Star Trek for the first time. But we'll cover the ins and outs as we go along. You, having never seen an episode of Star Trek, from the beginning of this one, you figured it out. I mean, you get who the characters are, you get the relationships.
What better way than to find out what their wants are?
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was a couple things that I was super surprised about. I didn't realize that 7 of 9 is as analytical and cold. I didn't know how much of the Borg was left behind. So it really took me by surprise, but I also really liked it. It also doubly surprised me because I was like, but then you also have a Vulcan, so why do you need two really logical? But I guess you're getting it from two sides, which I love. I love that they weren't afraid to do that. I think the only person I ended up watching a little bit of the pilot. I sort of understand who were the Maquis, and Chakotay and Tuvok and all them were like, basically rebels or whatever. And again, I know some of this stuff because of TNG, right?
Sure,
like I know a little bit of what's going on with the Cardassians and all those things. So I just don't know how they get onto the Delta Quadrant. But like, what wonderful writing where all you need to see is Janeway going, Mark's written off the engagement, and like, you know what she wants.
That's it. That's it. Literally in one sentence, you get where she's coming from, what her desire is, why this is good news. I love this kind of writing where, to me, it's the sweet spot. And you can look at old Trek, TOS, TNG, at least for the first couple of seasons, where it's very episodic and almost an anthology-like show. We just have this science fiction format where we can plug in different types of storytelling. Right. As opposed to what we got in the modern era, we, of course, recording this in 2024, where everything is super serialized. And to me, I feel like we're kind of in this sweet spot for what I like, which is you've got character growth, you've got character arcs that can be informed one way or the other, but then you take an episode like this and it just hangs on its own, and you go like, yeah, I get it. Beginning to end, I totally get it. So.
But because you're in... you know how much going to Earth means to them. And this is something that Mike and I talk about on the Orville podcast is Seth doesn't spend a lot of time on, look at me, I'm the captain, I'm the big guy making all the decisions. He does this formula perfectly. Yeah. Where you watch an episode, you get to learn something about this character. You watch another episode, you learn about the first officer. So this one was just great because while it was a 7 of 9 bottle episode, I got to know every single person's wants. And I found myself just as surprised as I was the day I watched TNG for the first time. I loved it. I was surprised how much I loved it.
All right, perfect. All right. Well, let's go through kind of bit by bit, act by act.
Let's do it.
I have to ask you about the teaser.
Okay.
Because there's something weird about Voyager, and the more of Voyager you watch, you'll notice this. It's like a competition to have the shortest, least dialogue teaser that you can possibly get.
Interesting.
This one, and I love it where we get one that doesn't have our hero characters, that doesn't have Voyager, and you get what you need right away. Did it?
You can imagine how confused I was.
Good. I think that was partly the intention.
Well, I was like, who is this guy? Is this a baddie we've dealt with? Is he on the ship? I wasn't sure.
Right.
So, but yeah, you just get exactly what you need a little bit in the top.
Now, what do you think about having a kid on board? Because it is also a little bit of a thing out of step to have this opening scene where you've got these three important characters on a shuttle out doing a thing, but there's a kid aboard. Now, I know that, Will took a lot of heat for being the kid, quote unquote, on TNG, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but I don't know, maybe I feel like either Naomi is better written or there's just something a little more realistic, that she's younger, but she wants to hang with the adults and push the buttons. I
was really confused as to whether or not, like, she was a Wesley Crusher and eventually got... Is she an ensign? Is she, actually... is it an Interview with a Vampire where she's actually 700 years old, but she's in a child's body? She's also pretty worldly. So I didn't know if they just like, all right, come along, But it actually felt like an apology, or like, hey guys, it felt like an apology to Wesley, like going, hey, we really messed up with you. Let's just try this again. Let's just put it this way.
Right.
It didn't bother me. I think what bothered me more was that, hey, let's make her an alien. Let's put things down the ridge of her.
Yeah.
Show me in a different way. I don't know. This was just, that being said, you forget about it. She's adorable. There's a great moment in Family Guy where they reference oh, look, a kid actor, the most distracting part of anything I ever watched with kids in it. Because at any point, you really are watching it going, A, you're too good and that's creepy, or
Yeah.
B, you're awful and this is uncomfortable. You're always looking for like the breaking of the fourth wall with a kid in it. She's not bad though. She's really charming.
Yeah, no, I feel like there's neither too much nor too little
Correct.
of her. I wish, because of course you don't know this, Samantha Wildman, her mother, was actually introduced way back in season 1, but now we don't see her at all. And at least they name checked her. Tom says something about her, but I
She's
kind
an
of
orphan or something.
Yeah. And I love her relationship with Seven, but I wish that her actual mom was still somewhere to be seen.
I thought that was weird too. I had a feeling that I was missing it, like, because it wasn't on this episode. But like, I want to see what role the mom plays and why is she so interested in it. I guess that's good that they're like, that this character is so interesting. We want to know more. But I'm with you that I was like, well, let me just see the mom. Why is this kid going off with these people? Who are So I was really confused.
Disney gets criticism for it. Star Trek, I think, should get more criticism for it, which is this thing about orphans. And it's sort of like, okay, even if they don't start out as orphans, by God, we're going to make them an orphan somehow. And here they did it by just ignoring that Samantha Wildman exists.
From the acting perspective, the Samantha Wildman is so mad. She's
I know.
Cast me.
She's right there. Yeah. Now, this, of course, is your first real exposure to Seven of Nine as a presence, as a character. And, even if you didn't get what you needed from her being on the shuttle, I love her in Astrometrics because I love that you just walk in, not say a word, and you know that she thinks everybody else in there is an idiot.
Wow. I mean, she must be able to sense that everyone's like just completely disregarding common sense. Mm-hmm. Is that? Yep. I just love that she's that competent. That, like, first of all, a good Star Trek crew, a good crew are people who are good at their jobs, and you trust that they are. But she's looking at all of them like, you're wrong. Why are you wrong? But I love that they're like, well, go check for yourself. It's wonderful. Yeah. So what is astrometrics, though? You got to make me hip to this term.
Yeah. They created it for Voyager's 4th season. They created it as kind of a place to fit Seven's abilities because she comes to Voyager with all this Borg knowledge, Borg technology. Hey, I can make your trip faster and better. Well, she wasn't totally voluntary. I would say for sure go back and watch her whole arc up until now, where she's introduced at the end of season 3, beginning of season 1, because it's rough. It's rocky because she is ripped from the only reality that she has known. But Astrometrics is this leap forward, like the super advanced science lab that obviously no other ship in Starfleet is going to have. And it's really her domain.
Got it.
Yeah.
I mean, I truly love that she just from the bat was like, it's infinitesimal that this is happening.
Yes.
I mean, I just recently learned of a woman that was finally pardoned because this is horrible. It's a horrible story. Poor woman. She had 2 different babies die of sudden death.
Sudden
infant death syndrome,
oh
right?
My God.
SIDS.
Yeah.
And because the second one died, they got the math wrong in the courtroom, and they thought, of course, that this woman has killed the babies.
Oh, no.
And they basically did the odds of that happening, and she was sentenced because the way that the prosecution framed it, it made it sound like the math was right, that it was impossible for this to have happened. She was finally released after 10 years or something.
Oh, my God.
Because they got the math wrong.
Yeah.
So, like, even from a logic standpoint, the reason I bring it up, from a logic standpoint, when she's saying that, she knows that.
Yes.
And there shouldn't be a wormhole here.
Right.
And no one's listening
to.
I love that immediate knowledge. And that was really just overall, this episode's really enjoyable from like how badass she is. I know we're not supposed to curse, but that's the one I'm gonna get in.
It's okay. We can slip that one in.
Yeah.
Also, very easy to break into the captain's logs. Very impressed.
I was amazed.
With her ability. I love the again. It's something that only her character can get away with. Where you hear this response, the error, come from the computer. And instead of it stopping her at all, she just walks her through a panel, rips it off. Okay, do it again.
Could have done this at any time. So if you're telling me she was in duress, like trying to be put on this ship in the first place, she could have undermined this whole crew at any time. And Majels is just like, yeah, fine. Well, here's the log.
Yeah. There's a moment where Neelix approaches her in the hall and says, I have a letter for Annika Hansen. Now, that is her pre-Borg name. And
so I didn't catch that the first time. I didn't understand what it was about. Yeah.
And I wanted to bring it up here because my question to the audience here is, did Seven just get dead named? And because that is a thing. We rarely ever jump the timeline in Mission Log. We have not gotten around to Star Trek Picard yet, but this is, obviously a character who comes back, and that becomes a thing in that series.
Her previous life.
Yeah. Huh. But I think this might actually be one of those places where it passes only because, like, I'm not advocating saying that it is the right thing to do to dead name her. However, so far, Voyager has only had one contact with the Alpha Quadrant, and that was when the Doctor, you have not seen this, but the Doctor in an episode called Message in a Bottle is sent through a communications array, has contact with a Federation ship, but not for very long. There's a whole other situation there that he's got to deal with. I don't know that he would have had the time to explain everything that's been going on with Voyager. And even if he had, I don't know that that specific information would have gotten back in detail, in great detail, to the potential relatives of 7 of 9, formerly Annika Hansen.
Right.
Even then, this is all fake, because this is just delusions sent through by the creature.
Right.
So it's not necessarily basing it on what would actually have come from the Alpha Quadrant. So maybe that is a tip-off, again, to her to say, oh, no, this is fake.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of heavy lifting and filling in the blanks, but I would normally say that to somebody who's like trying to justify something. I think we're seeing her we're not seeing her connect the dots.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Because as we go through and when we go through each act, she's actually really being abused by this thing. And this is the first abuse. So if you want, you can say, actually, he's trying whatever. Okay, whether we've decided, I don't know if we're going to decide whether this is actually sentient, whether it's worth deciding it or not.
Right.
But it's trying to do whatever it can to get it to work for her, right?
Yeah.
And it thinks that this is going to work, but it's actually it's a trigger and it's an abuse. So that probably is a good sign. Again, let's not forget, she doesn't want to go to Earth, and even Janeway says it, which is abusive also. Like, your feelings, they don't matter here.
Yeah.
That should be a tip off to me that someone that I've learned to respect, I would hope. I would assume at this point she respects Janeway.
Yeah.
Goes, your feelings don't really matter. I'm just going to dismiss them. That's a tip off. I think that's tip off number one.
Yeah.
And it was for the audience. But dead naming, that's abusive. So you're really right to point that out there. Whatever Neelix says too about him becoming an ambassador is he says 7 words that don't make sense to me. He's like, I'm going to be the ambassador of Jollytown, and I just know that the truth is no one's going to make him an ambassador. I don't think he can be.
I'm good with quadrupeds. And, so that's her next tip off. Like, I don't think so.
That's probably not the case.
Yeah.
So this is good though that we see the two logic beings going after each other. I really liked that scene because I thought she was going to get through to him.
Yeah. I want more of them. Just overall in Voyager, I want more of them together because, look, Tuvok is full Vulcan. He's not Spock here dealing with the human side.
Right.
7, part Borg, part human. She's dealing with a whole other mess of issues. And I always figure that if anybody has the potential to outsmart one or the other, it's going to be 7 versus Tuvok,
And I want to watch that go head-to-head all day. You know what? We should create AI simulations of them and just have them debate.
Just let them fight it out.
This is so good. And I do think she almost got him, but he he was bought in at that point. I also really love every single time Seven of Nine says Naomi Wildman. It's just such a wonderful delivery, and it's such a great name. And I really didn't know. I mean, you can't tell me Jerry Ryan isn't the most beautiful person on the planet, and this outfit isn't insane. Whatever.
Right.
It's like it's actually. I feel so bad that she has to be in this, but when your body looks like that under duress, I don't know. Like, because I remember the TNG ladies complaining about it, right? Like how painful it was, but like this what. To fit into them, and they had the girdles and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
absolutely.
she looks great. She looks great. And then she's talking like this and spewing knowledge. I'm all in. It's amazing.
Yeah. There is so much to be debated and discussed and picked apart, 25 years later about Seven of Nine. But at the end of the day, I will say she looks amazing, and she is also one of the most fascinating, rich characters that Star Trek has ever come up with, and played perfectly. I cannot think of another person who could play that quite the way she did.
Yeah, it's a choice. It's got to be hard to play it, but you can tell, especially throughout this episode, when she's kind of just prying or just trying to get someone to see something. You can tell when she's pissed, and it's not, but it's like, it's nuance. And so it is really, really good for her to get this role, because it's not an easy role. So another thing that really set off alarm bells for me is how Chakotay grabs Seven of Nine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's ice cold when he says resistance is futile. It's actually like, that's just like out and out antagonism by the entity. But the way he grabs her arm, I really hope it was directed that way, because that's very much abusive, possessive.
I think, well, it should make us uncomfortable. Like, it's not just, they're trapped in a delusion. It's like, no, they are completely lost, to the extent that they would hurt one another to get what they want.
That's what it has to be, right? I guess that's the case. Yeah. So by that point, I realized, because I had to watch this twice, the dead naming, and then the grabbing, and then the triggering here is very bad. Oh, yeah. And gaslighting, it's all very bad. In terms of what she's experiencing, not in terms of the writing. The story is good.
Yeah. Now, you haven't seen the episode before, but this is the return of Naomi Wildman's macrocephalic Flotter doll, the little blue guy. Yeah. Well, Flotter is a character from a 23rd, maybe, and definitely into the 24th century children's holodeck novel story. In a previous episode, Harry Kim actually replicates a Flotter doll, and I'm like, that's great. You made this Flotter doll with just a gigantic head. So I
gotta tell you, though, it looked like it was from the 24th century. So whatever she was holding, I was like, that makes sense.
Make it spacey. Put a blue head on it and a holographic rainbow outfit, and it's a space doll now.
I mean, I'm surprised it didn't have commercial success in our day and age. I feel like that's amazing merch. Somebody probably has, at this point, hopefully someone should crochet it, right? Make a crochet version of it.
Yeah.
I was surprised how close they were to the wormhole, because 2,000 kilometers in a starship isn't that far, right?
No, it's super close. Yeah.
So they must have been stopping every time Seven of Nine is thwarting them, right? Or I don't understand how that works out. Or they're are they just in thrusters, or... Maybe. I just was confused at how close we were to this wormhole.
Well, and early on, she says something about it's 300,000 kilometers away, but it should have been picked up on scans by then.
I love that.
Yeah, so even the 300,000 was close enough to them from their understanding of the space. So 2,000 is super close. Yeah.
I just meant that they should have been sucked up. I have a hard time where it's we've got 3 minutes to disarm the bomb, and you're watching 20 minutes of sequence play out.
Right. They should have been in there and eaten a long time ago.
That's all. But it makes sense, though. She's thwarting them too.
Yeah. Let's see. I really like the juxtaposition of weird ethereal dream stuff and then scary alien digestive tract outside the window.
It is so good. And then you see the sequence where you see Tuvok making finger love to his wife, and then but he's actually on the floor. It's scary.
Yeah, it's creepy, wonderful.
They are taking their time. When I like when a TV show goes, we're just going to show you, and you're experiencing it.
Yeah, this is what they're going through.
I did expect, though, that when Janeway's looking at the monitor, that Mark's face would just be right there. I just thought...
I would have loved that.
Right. Have we ever seen Mark? Do we know who Mark is?
I think, yeah, I mean, he has been referenced since the beginning. Not that much, but he has been referenced. And I believe that we will see him later. I haven't watched ahead, but Spoilers. He is a known entity, and we absolutely should have seen him there. Again, a lot to be said about how good Naomi Wildman is in this, and like having agency and insisting to be a part of this. There's a shot here that I want to point out because it probably wouldn't mean as much to you, but maybe the rest of our audience will know. There's a scene where Seven is carrying Naomi, and they're walking down a curved corridor past windows that are looking out into the digestive tract of the creature. I don't think we've ever seen another corridor shot on Voyager that has windows. It's a weird shot. Most of the time, the corridors are all interior because it's expensive to put something on the other side of the windows. And I wonder if that was a redress of the mess hall set because there are windows on the other side. Whatever it was very cool and very rare for a show like this.
But you bring up a good point. To have them round the corner there makes us believe that they are on the exterior of the ship.
Yeah, there's some outer area. Yeah.
That's cool.
Looked really, really good. I love some of the deliveries. I mean, 7 of 9 can just, she and the Doctor always deliver dialogue beautifully. So just telling Katai, decide now.
Decide now.
Whether or not he's going to beam over. Terrific.
I love that kind of decisiveness out of anybody, but especially a woman. But like, if you just got to take control of the situation, and you can't beat her logic here. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it. I think the Doctor says slow down twice in this. Slow down. I just like he's
out of it.
AI. Yeah. He has a million. Like, he can catch up quickly, and he's telling her, slow down. This is what I knew first.
Right.
So,
He's
amazing.
Wonderful. Yeah.
So good.
Speaking of the Doctor, again, just great dialogue that is just hand-tailored for him. Stuff like, this is sickbait, not an arsenal. Wonderful.
Amazing TOS stuff here.
Yes. Yeah. Likewise, with referencing Katai, or talking to Katai, I'm a doctor, not a dragon slayer.
Chef's kiss.
Yes.
Fantastic. So tell me, though, is it a running joke that when the EMH materializes, that he's facing not the direction of the person that has called him in?
Yeah, it kind of is. It's like somebody walks into sickbay, and when he materializes for the first time, he's usually in the other side of that little office.
Ridiculous.
It's great. It's great.
Ridiculous.
I love, even if they had talked about it, at least they stuck with it as a gag. So
it's subtle, because you don't see him like do a double take to find out where they are. But like, you'd think with all this technology, he would be able to sense where the voice is coming from and materialize.
Just show up in your face. Right.
Yeah, you would imagine. It's very good.
Were you fooled by the fake out that the initial blast
it
got
worked
them
for
clear?
me, yeah.
It did?
I thought
okay.
So.
Okay.
I did. I should have known better, knowing Trek as well as I do, because they did say, we're spit out so far. It did get me.
I believed it for a second, except I was surprised that we didn't see it happen. Oh. So when they just said it, like, we've been thrown clear of the creature, I was like, okay, fine, but why didn't you show that? Because it is Star Trek,
100%. I think the way I was thinking about it is like, this probably happened. There's going to be another complication. I knew we weren't out of the woods, but I have no reason not to believe it. But it was a good fake out. Let's just put it that way. It really was a good fake out.
And at long last, I love the captain's log where Janeway says that they have put up the warning beacons because since mission log began, with the first visit to a dangerous planet, like, I don't know, Talos 4, where the Talosians will suck you in with their, hey, here's a good parallel with the telepathic illusions to lure you in. We always said, put up the orange safety cones around this planet so nobody else goes there. That's what Janeway did in this episode.
She's a smart person, but don't the Talosians basically have incredible didn't in Discovery they can just basically make anyone believe anything from millions of miles away?
Absolutely. So too bad.
It wouldn't work anyway. But no, they had to do that. I'm glad they did. Because it's the least they could do. I know someone's going to blow past the buoy. Of course they will.
Right.
But they do put up something like that in TOS, though. I feel like it does happen once.
Yeah, they got to put up warnings around so many planets.
That's also true.
They just eat you. Our part of the galaxy is just full of orange safety cones. So don't go
This really is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It really is. I love that.
Yeah.
So many fun things in this episode, though, and just really good drama.
Yeah.
If you're having a dream about people being nice to you, in soft focus, I have very bad news for you.
We will get right back to Bliss after a word from this week's sponsor, ExpressVPN.
You know, John, using the internet without ExpressVPN is like taking a call on a train or a bus, or, in the checkout line at the grocery. Isn't that always great to hear details of people's lives in that manner? I mean, do you really want everyone around you to know about your medical test results?
No, I do not want to be that person. I've been around that person before, but I do not want to be that person. Now, it's essential to keep some things on let's say, a need-to-know basis, and that's why we rely on ExpressVPN. When you're online, all of your traffic flows through your internet service provider's servers, which means that they know every single site you visit. And in the U.S., they can even sell that information to advertisers. That is not very transparent and Starfleet of them, I would say.
No, I would say that would get you pulled up in front of a court-martial board.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, that's where ExpressVPN steps in. It reroutes 100% of your traffic through secure, encrypted servers, so your ISP has no clue where you are beaming your data. It's like having a cloaking device for your online activity.
That is exactly correct, and ExpressVPN makes it incredibly simple. You just open up the app, you click one button, and boom, you are protected. Plus, it works on all of your devices, phones, laptops, tablets, tricorder. Maybe not that last one, but you get the idea.
What about comm badges?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, good. They're way ahead of the curve. So it's no surprise ExpressVPN is rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. They're the best at keeping your online activities private.
Now, that is correct, Earl, and I actually used ExpressVPN this morning because I stopped for coffee and I had a bill to pay while I was sitting there and I was using their public Wi-Fi. And it always gives me peace of mind knowing that my data is safe. And keeping my browsing private is very important to me, and it should be important to you too, whether it's for personal information like banking or, like me, paying bills online, or just, I don't know, researching for a mission log. I don't need my ISP knowing how deeply I'm getting into Borg history and lore.
Yeah, whether you're watching Star Trek episodes or reading up on the latest sci-fi news or just generally acting like you're part of Section 31, which don't do that, nobody should be snooping on your internet activity. ExpressVPN keeps your online presence secure and private.
So protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/missionlog. That's expressvpn.com/missionlog, and you can get an extra 3 months for free. expressvpn.com/missionlog. So in the last segment, I mentioned definitely a TOS parallel with the Telosians and Cage doing their telepathic trick to lure people in. Not to eat them, that we know of, I'm just going to say. But there's something that in this episode, it reminded me of a lot of other science fiction or scenes from other science. I mean, look, there's like a Body Snatchers vibe here because of Seven being the only one, well, along with Naomi, not affected, so like that's a cool pretense to have. Obviously, there's a bit of a, Jonah and the whale story here. Not sci-fi, but,
major thematic stuff.
Yeah, thematic idea. I thought about the giant asteroid slug from The Empire Strikes Back. Of course, they actually name-checked Ishmael and Ahab, so we finally...
You expect that from Star Trek, though, to either go to... let's talk about T.S. Eliot, or,
Yeah. Look, either we're doing Shakespeare, or we're doing Moby Dick, or, we're going to fit them in there. There's so many parallels. And I just thought even the idea of the lure was a fun premise. I mean, they talk about, obviously, the pitcher plant, which has, some of them do it with scent. Some of them do it just with the visual to bring in, their prey. I thought about anglerfish, which are just super cool. They have the light to attract their prey.
Siren song.
Yeah, of course. Just thematically, this is such revisited territory. But it's great. Like, it is a great thing to revisit from time to time. Most of those things that I mentioned are, let's say, when we're talking about anglerfish or pitcher plants or Venus flytraps, let's say lower order species, one might say.
Sure.
Okay, just to kind of put a very general, generic term.
Predator,
on it,
like instinctual, has evolved to be this,
do that thing.
Yep, totally.
Yeah. And then Katai insists that the creature is intelligent, and I love what he says to the doctor, it's smart enough to take you offline, which was great. Then the doctor says that he sees no sign of sentience. It has just evolved to have the properties it does, the property being the telepathic lure, and then digest whatever it brings in. So let's weigh out this equation here. Katai wants to destroy it, thinking that it is intelligent. And the doctor, and Seven and Naomi by extension, want to save it, thinking that it is not intelligent. And go. Do you agree? Do you think that this is... I mean, look, it is Star Trek, so I feel like inherently in the story there will be this respect for quote-unquote new life.
Yeah.
We don't understand it. It isn't purposely attacking us for who we are. It's just trying to survive and eat. However, it is incredibly dangerous to us and everything around it.
You just made... without knowing it, the perfect argument as to why people in first world countries on this planet in current 21st century existence should be vegetarians.
You know what? The thought definitely had occurred to me as somebody who is not a vegetarian, talking to somebody who is a vegetarian. I would like to know how. Please help me expand upon that argument.
Let me preface it. I love meat. I miss meat. I dream about having sausage and prosciutto. I do miss it. I'm a newly minted as of 5 years ago vegetarian. My pure drive, for the most part, is emotional. I have cats. I couldn't imagine being in a position. I'm fortunate enough to not have to eat my cat for survival. I know there's, you know what I mean? Like, there's certain things that I'm realizing I come from a place of privilege. I also know that some people literally can't afford just biologically to not have some type of meat in their system, or bone broth, or that kind of animal protein for health. I'm not one of those vegans or people that think that A is going to tell you you're wrong. Or B, that you should change your lifestyle. I think my life's better from being a vegetarian, but I miss meat. So I'm one of those people who I'll be the change as opposed to tell you how to be the change. Okay. However, one of the most compelling arguments I've had about, vegetarianism is, who are we to say we have an understanding of how another organism experiences life, and why does it then give us the right to determine how or when or if they should live?
Right.
So, like an octopus tastes delicious.
Yeah.
That is one of the most complex organisms out there.
They're cool as hell and they're smart.
And scientists universally agree. Why should we wrap it around a stick and eat it when the tentacle's still able to go down? Those are really interesting arguments. I think also, just from another standpoint, the world order of things is eat organism, survive, right? That is how amoebas and single-celled organisms grew and became complex and yada, yada. So I'm not saying let's buck the whole system of I'm not going to tell a cheetah to not eat the gazelle. That's not
right.
Because that's also their survival. We don't need to eat meat for survival anymore.
Yeah.
We're past that part. Again, I'm not ruling in people who are, again, need meat biologically or it's helping them with their health or whatever. Like my aunt does better when she eats fish and she has MS and initially tried a vegan diet and it didn't do well for her. So so it's just like there are different diets that are better for people. But just from like a large standpoint, the meat industry and all that, we don't need to have that much meat. We don't need, they're not a threat to us. They're not, knocking down your door in the middle of the night in the Wild West going, we're going to get you for all the buffalo you killed. So you bring up a good point that as Star Trekian people, the Prime Directive and do no harm. Even he says, do no harm. This thing is a threat, though.
Well, and look, this is a thing, the idea of not eating meat. This is a thing that gets explored and expanded upon in later Star Trek. In fact, I think we are meant to infer from a lot of characters, especially in 24th century Trek, that they no longer do. Because that they sort of understand or at least have a different perspective on what that would mean toward another living creature. So, I think what you're saying here is very much in line with some of the underlying ethos of Star Trek. I also think it gets down to this very peculiar question, which is, all right, you have this creature that is, thousands of kilometers in diameter. So huge, gigantic thing.
Hundreds of thousands of years old.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of years old. We're able to do a little bit of study of it, not a tremendous amount. It's still interfering with the computers and all of this. But the Doctor has made a determination that he doesn't see signs of sentience. But I wonder what that means, though. Because, look, consciousness is still this question. It is this mystery. And now I, being fully the materialist that I am, and I say, okay, well, and I don't mean that as in terms of like being greedy. I'm talking about in terms of physiology of the mind and body. The consciousness, the mind, is the process of the brain. It is the process of the meat between my ears, just like hunger is the process of my digestive system.
Okay.
Hunger does not exist outside of my digestive system and my brain's interpretation of that, just like my consciousness, my sentience does not exist outside of my brain.
Right.
Okay?
So you're definitely in the camp of your soul doesn't go on after.
It is the process of my brain, right? The Doctor is making a very interesting determination here, just based on, okay, we're looking at this thing. What does that mean, though? And we've only got 45 minutes in an episode to explore all the possibilities here. But is it just a giant digestive tract? Is that all it is that has somehow managed to exist for that long? Would we look at it, or would the Doctor look at it as, well, like you were saying, an amoeba? This is just a giant space amoeba. All it does is suck up whatever nutrients it needs in order to keep going. And I wonder if you can, at any point, not you personally, but
challenge
you
accepted.
Generally, can get to a point to say, nope, it's better off. Our best course of action is to destroy it.
Yeah, I'm going to find myself on both sides of the argument, really, because of how dangerous this item is. Just from because it's so big. Because we've learned from firsthand information, it killed 3,000 people, right?
30,000.
30,000.
In Katais, and we have no idea how many in the last 200,000 years.
So, but they do, one of the first readings shows neural pathways. So it's interesting for this, it just goes back to my previous argument. We don't understand, our understanding of sentience is changing to the point now where even vegetarians are like, oh my God, can I eat a carrot? Because apparently grass screams when you cut it. And and there's more and more scientists nowadays that are signing like this decree that like, we believe animals have souls. A lot of people did a pretty good job of like disassociating, going, no, animals don't. souls or sentience, or a lot of things get
self-awareness.
And a lot of things get written away with instinct. I'm almost of the camp that I believe our inner selves have even smaller than atoms, neutrons that actually compromise thinking. So we don't actually fully understand how this creature thinks and what it acts. It's already moving course, right? It already knows that it's under threat. So it's like, this is bad. I'm going to go that direction. I will say, though, just from like a standpoint of threat, I think you end that thing. I really do. I think you take as much data as you can, and I think you destroy it. Because it's actually just more, it's more dangerous. But now I'm thinking, if you destroy it, do you destroy the fabric of the Delta Quadrant and everything comes in on itself? Like,
do you do that, or you potentially destroy the thing, the one sort of like cosmic dustbuster out there that has destroyed other more dangerous things?
Wow, I didn't even think about that, John.
Rod really, because of his ecological interests and his activism in that area, he really turned me on to the idea that sharks are like a critical part of the ecosystem. I edited a video for the Roddenberry Foundation a long time ago about how important it is to protect them, because they are doing this massively important cleanup job in the ocean. And if we see them as a threat, which is way overblown anyway, then we are hurting ourselves by decimating the shark population.
It's really interesting that you brought up the sharks, because we do view them as a predator. And I was thinking about them while we were talking. We did the same exact thing with the wolves in Yellowstone.
Oh, yeah.
Not really a huge threat to humans, maybe to your livestock, but once they reintroduced wolves into Yellowstone, the ecological order came into place. We also used to stop fires in national parks, and then we realized that was the only way pine cones could open up.
Right. Yeah.
And so now they have these controlled fires, or let the fires burn. And so I understand you don't destroy it, I guess, then, from just the sheer unknown element of it. Is that where you think you'd lie?
Maybe. But, at a certain point, the threat becomes too much. And if there's look, if I can see another version of this where the Borg are on the tail of Voyager and Janeway comes with a plan. It's like, if we get all of those Borg cubes to fly right into the maw of that giant creature, then I just save myself a lot of trouble. However, if it's threatening a more benign species who maybe are allies, I think the initial impulse to say, this is a living thing, we don't know enough about it, we need to figure out every way that we can to not harm it and then get as far away as possible. I think that is the Star Trek message that we have to start from anyway. And then if we're going to deviate from that message, we got to figure out a really good reason to deviate.
If they couldn't have gotten out of the maw, they have to figure out how to get out from the inside, you know what I mean, and destroy it. If they can clear it, I mean, it kind of makes Katai insane, because the beginning of the episode, he goes into it. He obviously got out, and he goes, and now he's going back. So that's also not a sane entity. He's a danger to himself. But
exactly.
But I think if you're looking at it from what we all hope to be, like a Star Trek, ish person, you have to do your best to preserve it. I think that's right.
So after all that, this guy is going to fly his ship back in there? He really needs a new hobby.
All right, Jessica, we have survived another day in the Delta Quadrant here, looking at the giant, scary creature with telepathic abilities that is Bliss. And as we do in every episode of Mission Log, we get to the end and we ask ourselves a few questions. We ask ourselves if the episode holds up, and we ask ourselves if we learned something from it. What is the message? So I pose it to you first. Does this episode of Star Trek Voyager, Bliss, hold up?
So as you know, because I did however many episodes of the Orville, we didn't ask this question because it's still newer. So I do need a better definition as to what do you mean with holding up?
I mean that is a purposely vague question because it can mean whatever you want. And you may find yourself tipped one way or the other thinking, you know what, this was a great story that was hurt in the execution, therefore it doesn't hold up for me. Or vice versa. This is a terrible story, but wow, I was really amazed by the acting or the effects or whatever. Or there was so much, bad dialogue that I couldn't get past that. So however you want to frame it is totally fair.
For someone who hasn't watched any Voyager, I'm going to say absolutely, because I was in and it sucked me in and I was on board. I think the only thing that I could argue doesn't hold up, that if today it was made, the argument just based on science and knowing how important science is to Star Trek, they would have a different philosophy point as to whether or not this is an actual pitcher pod. And this is like something, is this an actual, even if it is a pitcher pod, there sentience there. So that's just a thought I would have. What about you? Do you think it holds up in your estimation?
Yeah. We were talking about so many parallels of this type of story, and there's another one that I know that everybody listening who has watched all of TOS over and over again is probably yelling at their phones or iPods or however you're listening to this. The original series, The Immunity Syndrome, in which the Enterprise flies into a giant space amoeba. And what do? Kirk shakes bones, or is it Spock that he shakes? Antibodies, and that's how they get out.
Wow.
So, again, it's a thing that has been done, but when you do it well, it's just fun. And this episode rehashes familiar ground or familiar type of storytelling, but it does so to the strengths of our characters.
Right.
And that's what's good about it. And by the way, you could have done this the opposite way. Meaning you could have had one crew member suffering from the delusion and doing everything they can to sabotage things for the rest of the crew. And then you wonder, like, who's right, who's wrong, what's going on? You could have played this out numerous ways.
It's almost Inner Light, too. Like, he's experiencing this whole different world that is real to him, in a way. And you're totally right. There are no new stories, but we really, when we like the characters and they're well written, which again, I've never seen an episode of Voyager. I liked everyone right off the bat for the most part.
Yeah.
Then you're doing it right.
Yeah.
If it's interesting.
That's the thing. And I love when you can let your characters not be themselves, but do it in a way that works, that doesn't seem forced. So when you buy the premise of the telepathic effect, okay, cool. Now we can let our familiar characters act creepy and weird, and they do it wonderfully so. So even if there's not new ground being tread, this is produced very well. It's a really good showcase for the growing relationship between Seven and Naomi. They're just so good together. They're lovely. They are absolutely lovely together.
They make one whole adult.
They do.
You know what I mean?
Well, you know what? That's what's so cool is that Seven is really a blank slate with all the intelligence and logic of the Borg, but without the human experience to grow from yet. So these two are matched really well. And plus, man, Morgan Shepherd just chewing scenery.
Totally.
God, is he good?
Totally. He's chewing his prosthetics.
He is, yeah. So I really enjoyed it. I really think it was a cool episode. And, it does what I said at the beginning, what I like to see, which is you have a standalone episode, works totally from beginning, middle to end, but it also lets its characters grow.
Yeah.
And then that has payoff. So hopefully you will watch more of Voyager and see kind of where this fits in. But yeah.
I can't help myself. I'm so excited to watch
There
more.
you go.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So let's talk about morals, meanings, messages. I mean, sometimes there's the bonk bonk on the head moment. Other times it's just an idea, just a thought,
What's your idea? What did you walk away? What do you think it's about?
I mean, look, I think there are some obvious ones. It's like, okay, the look before you leap which I believe is quoted from the Doctor, which you could also look at as trust but verify. These are all interesting, these are all interesting things, but then you're dealing with a crew who are out of their minds. So that's part of the problem here.
If you don't have Naomi Wildman, you don't survive this.
You're done. You're done.
Yeah.
You are done if you don't have a Naomi Wildman on your crew. But I wondered if you could make this into more of a real world thing, because of course this is a fantastical idea. Make it more of a real world thing and look at it as like a lesson in epistemology.
Define that for me.
Okay, so in layman's terms, epistemology is looking at why you believe what you believe.
Oh.
It's not what you believe, but it's just having the wherewithal to examine, why do I have these beliefs? How do I arrive at them? Are they true? Are they not? What do I do with that? And I think back to a conversation that I had with somebody during the throes of the pandemic. And I won't relitigate that, but I think we all remember that, there were distinct camps of people who believed one course of action and another who believed another course of action, and these were at odds with each other. And I said to my friend, how do I know that by believing what I believe about this, that I'm not just like somebody else on the other side? And she said, by asking that, you're probably already a step ahead.
I'd like to believe that because I experience much the same dread.
Sure. Yeah. But had this crew been at least a step more in their right minds, this is the process that they would need to go through. They would need to, okay, I believe that this wormhole does this. I believe that we're getting messages from here. I believe that our best course of action is to do this. But why? Why do I believe that? Do I want that to be true? Or do I just accept it without verifying that that is the case? Now, they have these things that are thrown in their way to throw them off course. It's not fair what the creature is doing. But going back to Seven's journey with all of this, she is challenging everybody, especially that scene with Tuvok. Do you feel like you are experiencing a feeling that is more powerful than you would normally feel? And I love that. I love that, because it is about being able to step back from what you desire and examine it and say, okay, I may want this, but is it true?
Wow.
And that's the sort of the intellectual exercise I picked up from this.
I think that's right. Well, no, I think I just want to expand on that, because while I was watching this episode, it reminded me of something that also stuck with me, that emboldened me to be a dissenting opinion and an honest person. I've gotten some feedback from people recently that I'm I'm nothing if not honest. And honesty,
you are right. You are.
Honesty is different from the truth. I'm aware of that, but I also try not to make my truths or my honesties absolutes, just how I experience them and view them. And by some random happenstance, I couldn't tell you why, I saw World War Z, and I didn't even know it was about zombies. I really didn't. I swear to God. I think
you saw a trailer at some point, right?
I don't know, John. I just remember being surprised that there was a zombie there, because I don't know that they show that there were zombies in the trailer.
Okay,
I might be wrong about that, but I have a feeling. But anyway, they go to Israel. There's a wall in Israel, and we're not talking about Palestine. I'm just talking about the movie. There is what's called the 10th man rule, that if there are 9 people in a group of 10 that agree on an issue, you have to assign one of those people to disagree, so that you can test that theory and make it's basically devil advocate.
Yes,
the argument, and unfortunately, she is contending with just extraneous circumstances. But I love your thought, how do we apply it to today? I'm telling you, you need friends that don't wholeheartedly agree with everything you do, but question whether you're doing something because of X or Z. Hey, this old habit of yours is cropping up again. Is that why? And I want those people in my camp who aren't afraid to question my motives or ask me if I'm thinking clear-headedly. And I want to be that friend to somebody. Or I also want to be in a situation in a working situation where someone's going to allow me to go, I don't think so. Or, hey, let me tell you why this sounds like a bad idea. Or can we do a thought experiment where this may not work as people in advertising do that. And sometimes they let bad ads go because they know people are going to get pissed, Right. I want to be surrounded by people who aren't afraid to ask the hard questions as to whether something is right or wrong, or even what right and wrong means. So that's kind of what I was thinking of during this episode.
I love it. What a great lesson to pick up from Star Trek. Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog for early access to shows and the Mission Log Discord. Our website is missionlogpodcast.com, and for more Star Trek news and discussion, visit trekmovie.com.
On the next Mission Log, Dark Frontier.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com. Special thanks to consulting producers, Matt Esposito, Homer Frizzell, Rand Hurl, Tom Kozak, Julie Miller, Mike Richards, Mike Shadwell, Paul Shadwell, and David Takechi. Just keep the telepathic picture plant in the back of your mind the next time you have a really good day. There's a cheerful thought. End transmission.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.